It's April 27th, 2019. I'm your host, Stephen Vanover, here on the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. It is NFL Draft Day 3. Round 7 is coming up here just shortly as the draft comes to an end. And I have New York Giants analyst extraordinaire Tom McAlister online with us today, and we're going to break down the draft overall, but hey, we're going to jump right in and start with the Giants. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Well, Tom, the Giants had a draft that a lot of people got upset over at first, but I think there was some overreaction, this and that. I think their draft is actually shaping up fairly well right now. The first round pick notwithstanding, if we can set that aside for a minute, there's a definite culture shift here. I think they're definitely working hard at getting certain players in and certain players out. And I believe you said it in the green room before perfectly. If you were a Jerry Reese guy, you can pretty much kiss it goodbye.
Yeah, because one of the things that stands out is, the Giants, which I think would surprise a lot of people, they drafted 3 cornerbacks in this year's draft, and they also have a cornerback who did not play last year, last name Beal, who they picked up in the supplementary draft. So they have 4 cornerbacks coming in, and you have to look at Janoris Jenkins and think he's going to be eventually the odd man out in one way or another.
Oh yeah, with his contract, he's the guy making the most money there, and then also because of who he is and what he is, he's not a soft-spoken guy. He has opinions, and there was a flare-up, back when there was almost the team mutiny and everything, and Jenkins was part of that, right?
I think there was a team mutiny, and you could almost point to everyone on the roster because when things start going bad. Because you got to look at it. The Giants went in McAdoo's first season. They're a playoff team, clinched a playoff spot.
Right.
They didn't do that well. And then the next year they did a total 180 and just completely fell off. And they're having very bad losses too.
It was the hair gel, man. It was the hair gel. Okay. Let's just call it the way it is. All right.
and it was just something, didn't click. And it reached a point where, and also, I think taking out Eli Manning as quarterback for Geno Smith doesn't help. And it reached a point, the Eli Apple situation was the main thing when people are leaking things to the press, which was very unheard of. And in situations like that, the ironic thing is the person who tried to get in front of this and tried to appear to be a leader in the locker room was Landon Collins.
Right.
The Giants let him walk this year, but Collins did get an absorbent amount of money to leave too. So yeah, I don't think the Giants would have given him that contract.
There was a lot of contract issues going on, and a lot of that is because of the amount of money that they were having to hand out to OBJ, to keep him in camp and keep him signed. And he had given indications that maybe he was going to want a new deal, real quick again. Also, Gettleman gave the interview saying like, "Hey, man, we're going to have a culture shift here." Is how he referred to it. And he was very clear about that. He didn't mention players by name, but everybody knew who he was talking about. And, that's the OBJ. It's all the guys that are now no longer there, and his guys are there. And I think that was important. I mean, you guys came away with a load of picks in this draft, and he's using all of them, and he's using them at positions of need.
Yeah, for the most part, we'll talk about Dexter Lawrence, who came over as part of the OBJ trade. Right. I think this was a little bit surprising because defensive tackle, I think the Giants were strong at. They have Dalvin Tomlinson and B.J. Hill starting. Dalvin Tomlinson is going into his 3rd year, solid pickup out of Alabama. And I think Dexter Lawrence, they'll just put him at the middle, and they want B.J. Hill and Dalvin Tomlinson to hopefully become better pass rushers.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the one thing, you got to look at is, the one thing that was, I guess, a little bit surprising is they did not draft an offensive lineman. That could be a little.
That is interesting as to why that didn't happen. But then you got to look at all that they have done with the offensive line here recently, and it's been impressive. the offseason. And then also, there's some guys that are getting better there. I thought that offensive line was really starting to gel towards the end of the season. But just sticking with the defensive side of the ball, not only did you guys really change what you're doing at cornerback, look at what you did at linebacker slash edge. You picked up Ryan Connolly in the 5th. Now, a lot of people think that he's a little short or something like that, but he's got the range to be a really effective guy for you on the inside, and you need a guy, to do that in the rotation plus special teams. So I think that's a really good pick. And then you got Oshani Zimenez, all right, on the edge from Old Dominion. You need that. You've got to have that. So I think he's bringing, a lot of needed parts and pieces to the defense, and that should make the running game even more effective, yeah?
You definitely have to hope so, especially, the Giants were unable to get a pass rush that often. You have to wonder if you improve the cornerbacks, would that help the pass rush? Because football is one of those games where you complement each other, where the better the pass rush is, the better the secondary could be. They didn't pick up a safety, which could also be an option for one of these cornerbacks. They could switch one of them over to safety going forward. They did pick up the pass rusher from Old Dominion. He's good at forced fumbles, which I think is a trademark of former Giants pass rushers in the past. When you look at the Lawrence Taylor or the UCU Manura, able to go in there and cause havoc. And it's also one of the things, too, you're able to stop a lot of offenses if you're able to get to the quarterback as fast as possible and make that quarterback feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's stay in the NFC East here. Actually, we can't finish up the Giants without talking about the QB. All right. The QB connection, of course, is the quarterback guru of the Manning family is the head coach of Duke. So they had direct connection with him. This guy has been around Eli Manning before. They've worked out. They know each other. So these guys are definitely going to. They know what they're getting. Okay, they understand. So I think we really need to wait and let that pick, take its time and find out what's going on, and let that pick shake out. Sure, I think he took it early, but to trade down, you got to have the right trade partner. And from what I understand, they couldn't really find the right trade partner that would let them trade down the right number of spots. So they went ahead and just took it then.
I think too with the situation with Daniel Jones was a lot of people believe that he would have been available at a lower pick, whether it would be 17 or something like that. I think they're more upset not that they got him, but when they got him.
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of wait, have to wait and let that play out, okay? Brian Cole, I understand that you're logged in now. Hey, man, welcome to the show. And hey, we've got some horrible background noise from somebody, so if you're not on, be sure and go mute, okay? Cool.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
All right, yeah, Brian.
How's it going?
It's going well. Hey, man, you're here. We just finished talking about the Giants and their draft. I think it's a great time with you here to start talking about the Patriots and their draft. And we can just jump right in and explain how you have to give up value to move up and take a punter. Let's start with that.
I don't even want to talk about that. That just frustrates me on so many different levels. That's such a Patriots move that you're in the 5th. It's not like you're in the 7th. And you're like, you know what? We don't want to draft all these extra players. They probably could have drafted him in the 7th round. Never mind, whatever. I don't know. That is the Bill Belichick move to be like, you know what? I'm so sick of this draft. I'm over this. I just want to get on with it. I'm just going to trade up for a punter.
Yeah, totally. I'm out of this draft. I'm done. I've had. And to make it worse, I'm going to take a punter. Okay. But he's from Stanford, so he's a smart punter.
Yes, exactly. So I'll take it. I mean, I'm not against it, as a player, and I'm not against the punter. I'm just not at why first off, why in the 5th round? Second, why did you have to trade up for him? The Patriots traded up 4 picks just to get him. Was he really going to go in those 4 picks? Probably not.
Probably not. But then again, the whole world fears a madman, and Belichick, he likes to keep everybody guessing. So maybe that's why he did it.
Yeah, probably just to screw with the rest of the league.
Just a mind twist. That's it. Just a mind twist. Well, hey man, let's start at the top of the draft with wide receiver N'Keal Harry. You guys actually had a 1st round pick. I know that's rare, 2 years in a row. and it worked out really well for you last year. This one here I like as well. Talk to me about it. What do you think about this and his fit?
I'm actually very happy about this pick. I mean, I think there was a lot of people who thought that the Patriots are going to trade down, which is something they've done in the past. But they decided to stay put. I think there was a lot of talent still available at 32, a lot of valuable talent.
Mm-hmm.
And and Adam Schefter had reported that very recently that the Cardinals wanted Harry, and they had the next pick in the draft in the top of the second round. So if the Pats didn't get him then, like if they didn't get him at 32, then he would have been off the board. So they must have just really valued him, and I can completely understand why. He's just a big-bodied receiver. He has great body control, knows how to go up and get the football, knows how to make contested catches. He doesn't have super burner speed. He's not a Deshaun Jackson where he's running a 4.3 and going to blaze down the sideline. But when you throw the ball, he's going to fight for it. He's going to go get it, and just a good route runner, and I think he's going to be a good receiver going forward. And the getting him in the first round allows the Patriots the fifth year option if he works out and turns out to be a stud receiver.
Well, there really wasn't a big tight end to be had there, so you got a big wide receiver instead. I think it's a great fit all the way around. Now, they backed it up in the second, and they flipped to the other side of the ball and went at cornerback with Jonah Williams. I think that's another excellent fit. And there you guys go, doubling down in the defensive backfield, something that he does a lot, right?
Yeah, and I think it didn't surprise a lot of people. I think the player everyone agreed with. I think people were surprised, and I was surprised that they were targeting a cornerback or just a defensive back, because I think they might move him to safety. But targeting a defensive back that high when they're pretty deep at defensive back right now. But I think this is a player that they coveted. He's very talented, very, very long. He's got great size to him, which I think they want to be able to use, again, either at cornerback or safety. And he's also an extremely intelligent and extremely high character player, which was a theme this entire draft. Almost all of their players have been team captains or just well respected players. And I think that's what it was with Williams. They just felt he was a great fit for the team in terms of his attitude, his leadership. And he just brings a good skill set. Even if he doesn't start next year, he has time to develop as the Patriots, because their secondary is getting older.
Yeah, I mean, and Bill, he isn't one to sit around and wait for it to happen. He likes to be a year or two before it happens.
Exactly. And I think he looks, you look at some of them with some tight ends getting more athletic. I mean, you see a Noah Fant come into the league and a lot of other pass-catching tight ends. You want someone who's almost a cross between a safety and a cornerback, who's someone who could cover receivers like a cornerback, but has the size. Again, that's what Williams has. He's 6'3", 220. He has the size to cover these new athletic tight ends.
Yeah, it's and Belichick has never wanted to let a matchup get the better of him. He's always looking down the road on that. Now you come back in the third and you get what every guy wants, and that's edge pressure with Chase Winovich. I'm surprised this guy was actually available here, and wow, that's another value pick, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that pick was great for value, because some people had him going in the mid-second, depending on what mock draft you're looking at. But I think he doesn't have the highest ceiling, but I think he has a high floor, just on he works hard. He's a great leader, and he just has tenacity. Every single play he's going 150%, and he's giving it all. Again, I think he doesn't have the same talent like his teammate Rashawn, like the same talent level as his teammate Rashawn Gary. But he's a kid who's going to come in day one and put it all on the line and be a consistent player. He could be a Patriot for a decade and a half and just be one of those players who fits the perfect Patriot mold and comes in and can play multiple positions along the defensive line and really do whatever they need him to do.
I hope he can handle it, having that many rings on one hand. Maybe he ought to switch him back and forth if he's going to be here that long. All right, now in the third, you doubled down. You had quite a few third-round picks. It was a really big round for you. And again, he went with the position that a lot of people think that, wow, what'd you go running back for? But he did, Damian Harris. And what skill set does Harris bring there?
I think with Harris, it was purely let's pick the best player on the board. I mean, again, Harris was another player who most people thought would go higher, maybe somewhere toward the beginning to the middle of the third round. And I think at that point, they were like, hey, you know what? He's just the best player on the board. There's no one else at the value of this pick, so let's just go with it. And obviously, it's tough for the Patriots because they have a crowded backfield right now. I mean, they have still Rex Burkhead, James White, Sony Michel, who was their first-round pick last year, and they re-signed Brandon Bolden. But I think Harris is he's a solid runner. He runs hard. That's the one thing. He's a bigger body, and he just knows how to run in between the tackles and put his head down and just be productive. That's what he had 3 seasons at Alabama with over 1,000 yards. So he knows how to run the ball, and he adds value as a special teams player, which obviously the Patriots.
Oh yeah, they love that. But here's something I want to throw at you, because this is something that flashed in my mind when I saw the pick. Belichick likes to lead more so than react, and he was instrumental in getting these 2 tight end attacks and the tight end matchup and everything really popular in the league. But now all of a sudden with Gronk retiring, this, that, and everything, he's got what he's got on the roster. He's got a ton of running backs. I could see this guy coming back with a full house backfield and just messing with people's minds.
Oh, exactly. Especially because you look at the trend over the past, half decade to a decade has been smaller linebacker, like thinner linebackers, because they need to be more athletic to cover these new athletic tight ends and cover running backs out of the backfield. Well, if you have smaller linebackers, you're going to have, like, if you have a more stout offensive line and you have some bigger body running backs, you're going to run them right over. So I think that's what he's thinking when he looks at a player like Damian Harris, who is going to be able to power through them.
Yeah, so I was impressed. He's never one to miss on an opportunity. Of course, then he backs it up there again in the third, getting Yadni Kajuste at offensive tackle out of West Virginia. And, of course, he needed help there, and, I think he got some.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the Patriots lost Trent Brown in the offseason at left tackle, and Marcus Cannon is getting up there in age at right tackle. The Patriots, they still have Isaiah Wynn, who was their first-round pick.
Well, there is the league rule that the Patriots have to give up an offensive tackle every season now. I think that's a league rule, right?
Yeah, probably, and then they'll just get another. It's crazy, but so Isaiah Wynn sat out last year with a torn Achilles, but so he's coming back, a first-round talent. I think they just wanted more depth at tackle. Again, with Marcus Cannon being up in age, because now if he goes down, then you're running thin.
Oh, you're toast
at your depth. So, I think that, again, I think that was a good value pick. I think he was at that late in the third round. He was just a good player on the board.
And you're getting the other guy back from injury, the rookie from last year, right?
Yes, exactly. So I think with Yadni, it's just he definitely has to develop. He's not as polished as Isaiah Wynn was coming out, obviously, but I think it's a good swing tackle and someone who you'll be able to rotate in and just give him time. He doesn't have to walk in and start right away, which is great. So he'll be able to, develop, and the Patriots will be able to add him in and out. And again, with their bigger running backs, if they want to say, hey, let's load up the line, put him in as a tight end, basically or an extra blocker and maul people over.
Different ways to get it done. Then in the fourth, he comes back and works on the interior of the line with Yohalte for a Holt. Either that, or he just wanted a guy to really mess with the Jersey guys, minds, to see if they could, he could screw him up. But he's a guard out of Arkansas. He's an import, I believe, from Denmark or something like that.
Yep, Denmark.
He actually did some high school here, then went back to Denmark for a year before he came over to college. He played on the defensive side of the ball, and he's only been on the offensive side for, I think, 2 years, right?
Yeah. He's new to the offense, but very cool. Oh, before I continue, I just want to give you a lot of props. The fact that you were able to pronounce that name is still beyond me. Ever since I saw the pick, I've been trying to figure out the best way to pronounce it. I didn't hear anyone say it. I've just been following online.
Well, the HJ will be like a J-O in English, so it'll be like Yoholt, like Y almost, and then it'll be Froholt.
Yeah, see, I was just trying my best, but that was good. But no, he is. A lot of people were I don't say surprised that he kind of fell that far, because obviously he wasn't a huge name, but he was one of the best pass blocking interior linemen in the SEC. So I think. And
Mr. Brady likes that, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, and again, this is all bolstering the Patriots had one of the better offensive lines in the league last year. So you look at it and you say, well, this isn't really a need, but I think it never hurts to have an offensive lineman, especially a developmental one, one who can, you have a couple people like Joe Tooney in the last year of their contract. So if they think that Froholt can, be develop this year and be the guy next year and just let Tooney walk, then they're making a pick for, the future, and he's just a good pass blocker, and now he'll have time to develop his run blocking a little bit and just add more depth to a line that I guarantee is going to be running a lot next year.
All right. Well, yeah, and I agree with that. We're going to skip over the next fourth-round pick real quick, and I want to talk about the fifth-round pick. And we've already talked about the last fifth-round pick, which is one of your favorite, Jake Bailey, the punter out of Stanford. And also in the fifth round, you picked up a defensive tackle. Again, that's something that you guys need. Maryland Byron Cowart. I'm not really familiar with this guy. Can you tell me about him?
He was a solid player. He's a big body guy. He's not super athletic. That's something that he's got to work on, but he's got good size. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he didn't really live quite up to the hype at Maryland. I mean, solid player. Don't get me wrong. He was solid, but not jumping off the board. But I think he's got a lot of potential, especially with his size and his strength. The Patriots need, again, he's like a Lawrence guy who the Patriots currently have, but just a big guy who's going to just take up space in the interior of the line.
Right.
It's just, I think it's more of a developmental prospect, especially at the fifth round. I mean, the Patriots have done this the past couple of years where you get, defensive tackles in the third, fourth, fifth round where, they may hit or miss, but you just see what you can do. And even if you rotate them in a couple plays on first and second down just to take up some space. So
exactly.
I don't hate the pick. I think I would have liked them to go for a defensive tackle a little bit sooner, but I think it's a good pick at that value at the fifth round. I mean, there wasn't a lot left there, so.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to have a few warts on you if you're available in the fifth round. That's just a given. All right, but now let's bounce up to the fourth round, and I say this for last because the QB Jared Stidham was there in the fourth, and really he was only available there in the fourth because he had such a crappy 2018. If he had come in after 2017, he would have been drafted probably in the second round, maybe late first, in my opinion. What can you say about it?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I think I didn't really know much about him until they drafted him, and afterwards I looked at his stats. I mean, he had an unbelievable, not unbelievable, that's a little bit of a stretch, but he had a very good 2017. I mean, you said, if he'd come out after 2017, that's a second-round pick. But there's just some things fell off in 2018. But I also a lot of analysts were saying he didn't really fit in Auburn's system.
No, he did not. Which
obviously takes a toll, and he didn't have the best, surrounding cast. Like his offensive line was just okay. But Daniel Jeremiah, one of the NFL Network analysts, said that when he saw him at a private workout, he was one of the best, just in shorts and a t-shirt, shirt and shorts, was one of the best passers that he's not ever seen, but in this class, one of the best at throwing the football. The
guy can make all the throws. I mean, there's no problem. He's got the accuracy. He's comfortable. He's relaxed. His problem came when it came time to be game time, and it's just hard to say exactly what happened. But it's not like the guy has never done it. He did it in 2017. Then in 2018, I think you nailed it. The coaching staff there, he was not set up for success. And that's tough. A QB can only do so much.
Yeah, I agree. And I think from 2017 and 2018, maybe he got in his own head a little bit and was, again, with a new system and everything. And he overthought things. And because in 2017, he was a great decision maker. It was one of the things, he was very intelligent, reading defenses, did very well. In 2018, he just seemed to kind of fall off some of that, was either holding the ball too long or making too quick decisions, and something just seemed off between what he showed on the field in 2017 and 2018. So I just think with the right coaching staff, with which the Patriots seem to have, I mean, Josh McDaniels is a great, he's been a quarterback coach before and a great offensive mind. I think that's someone who could get the best out of this guy. And is he the next, Tom Brady? Maybe not. No, but I think, again, I think it's in the fourth round, it was a great pick, for that value, and he could be a second round level quarterback. He could be a solid starter if he can get his head back on his shoulders and get good coaching around him. Yeah,
I pretty much agree with everything you said in regards to that. From what I've seen of the kid, and like you said, once he was drafted, I went and did more research on him. I knew who he was, but I haven't really looked closely at him because he had such a bad year. But when Bill Belichick takes a guy, you pay attention to him. And of course,
Yeah.
what everybody's going to ask is, is this a matter of the king is dead, long live the king? Or is this just Belichick doing what he always does, takes a quarterback every year or every other year and trains the heck out of him just so that he has one?
Yeah, I think it's people don't always realize like how often the Patriots have taken quarterbacks. I mean, they took a quarterback after Brady's first Super Bowl. They took one after 2007 when he had his record-breaking Super Bowl. I mean, they draft quarterbacks all the time. Even again, not necessarily as Brady's successor, but just have another body and see how he does in camp, et cetera, et cetera. Could this be the kid? Maybe. You got time, but also could at the same time Brady get hurt this year, be out for 3 games. This kid comes in, looks like a stud, and then Belichick trades him like Jimmy Garoppolo for a first-round pick. Probably. And then Brady comes back next year and they win 3 more Super Bowls. Who the hell knows?
Or he could send Brady packing like he did Bledsoe.
Yeah, exactly. And then this gets the
the
real
internet
deal
would blow up. We would explode. The internet would explode. Okay, pretty much.
Yeah, but no, I think he's a good, solid player. I mean, he could bump up. Like they have Danny Etling on the practice squad right now, and then Brian Hoyer is the backup. I think if this kid is what he's looked like, if he could go back to what he looked like in 2017, he could bump them off the roster and be Brady's backup relatively soon.
All right, Tom, are you still online here? I don't actually have that in front of me where I can tell like who's in the queue. Okay, let's slide down to the Redskins here, guy. And Tom, why don't you start this out because you know the Redskins pretty well. What we're doing here is we're highlighting a few teams that we think had some really interesting drafts, and I think the Redskins definitely had an interesting draft. Tom, what do you think about that?
Yes, I think the Redskins potentially got their quarterback of the future, even though they said that before. Washington is a place where quarterbacks usually go to die or even get life to begin with, but they picked up Dwayne Haskins with the 15th pick overall. So he should hopefully come in and solidify that position for him. And they also had a 2nd-round pick, and they went for the other side of the ball with Montez Sweat. So they potentially had 2 players that fell to them, that had a lot of talent that they can use going forward this season and seasons beyond to establish themselves and finally become a consistent playoff team.
Okay, which brings, I think it begs the question, if anybody has information on this, I'd appreciate it. Where is Daniel Snyder? Who did it to him? And are they going to let him out of the closet? Because with him in the room, he screws this up.
Yes, when you look at dysfunction since Snyder has taken over the Washington franchise, they have not been the same.
Horrible.
They've been horrible. They draft RG3. He has one great season, blows out his knee. Kirk Cousins comes in, does a pretty good job. Even though Kirk Cousins isn't great, they let him go. But it looks like Daniel Snyder, they might have changed the phone number, or they might have put him in a different room, or told him the draft was in New York again.
Yeah, I think they did a Mission Impossible thing where they actually hired body doubles and thought, I've created a complete NFL draft over there for him, and he doesn't even know yet.
Yeah,
okay.
maybe they'll just show him NFL Network that's Super Bowl 26 with Washington playing all the time with Mark Rypien at quarterback.
All right, so then they come back, they get Terry McLaurin and then Bryce Love, and that's what I want to talk about for a minute. Adrian Peterson, and then who's the other kid that got hurt last year?
Geis.
Yeah, Geis. And then now this guy, Bryce Love, who is basically a lightning bolt. I think he runs like a 4.33, something like that. I mean, this kid can just go. He's not a bell cow back. He doesn't have the body for it. But, you put him in X number of plays, and, man, if he gets the ball, he can be gone. All 3 of those guys can score with one touch. I mean, in the NFC East, do you see any group of running backs in a division from team to team to team that is deeper than the NFC East?
No, because, you have to look at it. Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott, they're in the argument for best running back in the league. Washington, I would say this is more a pick for insurance on Adrian Peterson because he did have a great comeback season, but you have to be concerned, okay, even when Adrian Peterson was at his best, he was injury prone. So you have to wonder, okay, can he do it again? Depending on who you talk to with Bryce Love, he did tear his ACL in their regular season finale. But this is something where, it could be one of those low risk, high reward picks. And if, you just get, and running backs too, you need multiple running backs in this league. So you could let Peterson maybe run out for his contract, and he can have Love and Geis be a 1-2 punch going forward.
Oh man, it's just scary. And you're absolutely right about Adrian Peterson, having an injury history. But then on the other hand, you could cut off his leg, and it only took him a week to grow it back.
No, I heard it was. I heard it was 5 days.
5 days. Okay. Well, good. Thanks for correcting me on that. That's good. All right. Then they come back around round 4, and that's the thing that I think that the Redskins have going for them here. It's a Bill Belichickian shotgun approach. They have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like 10 picks or something like this. Terry McLaurin, Bryce Love. Then they got Wes Martin, the guard. Ross Piersbacher at center, Cole Holcomb at linebacker, Kelvin Harmon at wide receiver, and they still got 2 more picks to go. I mean, this is a solid, deep draft for them, and they needed it because I thought they were behind talent-wise. But, man, they're not so far away anymore, are they, Tom?
No, they're not. And I would say one of the things I like is you can get a solid interior lineman in the 4th and 5th round. Usually tackle are the premier position. Very rarely do you see guards go in the 1st round. I think last year's Quentin Nelson was one rare example. But you could come in and, it seemed like the Redskins had a plan coming into this draft. They knew which positions to target. They kind of had an idea which quarterback they want. That fell into their lap. They went for the best available defensive player. They got a running back. They got a wide receiver that's familiar with the quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. So they looked like they had a plan coming in, which is a rarity, I think, with the Redskins. Usually they'll make, one of those what are they doing type moves, and all the rest of their competition's laughing at them. So
yeah, I'll make the little cheesy correction there. No, they actually executed a plan. I'm pretty sure they had a plan all along. They just never executed it. I mean, it was just well done. I'm impressed. You're impressed. This bodes well for the NFC East and bad for everybody else in the NFC East. Brian, jump back in here in the conversation because the next team I want to look at, and we're only going to look at 2 more, and is one that I just think had a heck of a draft, and nobody's really talking about them because I think that they really reinforced their team. And I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks. What's your opinion on them, what they did, and how it's going to affect the upcoming season?
I think, we mixed it up a little bit on Twitter, and I think Seattle's had a solid draft so far, at least in terms of going forward with the offense that they have and adding some pieces. I mean, we talked about, you had mentioned how they wanted to get some big play receiver, how they got some big play receivers between DK Metcalf and Gary Jennings. I mean, you get some big bodies right there. I mean, Metcalf is huge, and I know Jennings is 6'1", 220. But I had said also, in addition to like having big bodies for Russell Wilson to throw to, you also have guys who can block. I mean, Metcalf is strong. No, it was impressive blocking, and then same thing with Jennings. I mean, other guys who can just block on the edge is anything, because that's one of the most underrated skills as a receiver is being able to block. Because if you can get your running backs or your quarterback with Russell Wilson to the outside, you get a good block. I mean, that's a 60-yard touchdown compared to a 5-yard gain.
It really changes a lot. And when you think about it, Russell Wilson is so dangerous when you give him more tools, and then you also make the offense more stable, because that's what you're doing with the running game. You're taking him out of 3rd and long, where he doesn't have to, where the defense can't pin their ears back and come after Russell Wilson. So that gives him more time. I do not want to give him more time.
No, I agree, and I think that's been huge. And I think if you look at some of their other picks, they've also added on. They have they got a guard in the 4th round, Phil Haynes, out of Wake Forest,
right?
Which is gonna help just anything to. I mean, if you're talking to someone who writes for the Patriots, you're gonna know that offensive line is huge, and I think that's what Seattle needs, especially with how beat up their offensive line was last year, and how badly Russell Wilson was taken down. He got sacked. I think the 2nd highest number in the league. He was close. So they could have used some of those earlier picks or some other offensive linemen, but in terms of what they did so far, it's going to be good. I mean, getting a 4th-round talent out of Wake Forest is a solid deal.
Oh yeah, I agree. This really brings this team in focus. And after they give such a big contract to their QB, they needed to transfer to some rookie contracts. That's why they traded Clark, and then they turn around and they get L.J. Collier. It remains to be seen. That's not a talent for talent switch there. Okay, I mean, Clark had refined his game and everything, and was a real weapon. L.J. Collier has potential, right?
Yeah, I think he's a solid pick, especially that late in the draft. I mean, again, is he going to be Frank Clark? Who knows? But it's hard when you trade someone who just got franchise tagged as one of your best players, and you bring in a rookie, and again, unless he's a top 5, top 10 player, who'd be like, nope, you got to fill that role and give us 15 sacks this year. But I mean, this is a talented kid, a good body who knows how to rush the passer, and I think considering they got a first, they started out the year with just 4 draft picks,
Exactly.
and they were able to use the Frank Clark trade to, again, get a solid 1st-round replacement and turn it into multiple picks and multiple players. I think this is a solid start for them.
Oh, yeah, real solid. Again, they had to get a bunch of rookie guys in there on those rookie contracts to be able to pay the QB the money that they are, and they needed to surround them with talent. Well, that means you've got a hit in the draft, and from everything that I'm seeing here, like you say, these are solid guys, boom, and they fit what they're trying to do. So I think it's a really exciting time for them. Hey, guys, the last team we're going to take a look at here before we close off, it's a team that, of course, I have input on, but the Dallas Cowboys, I think they had a really nice draft. I'm including Amari Cooper in the draft as the 1st-round pick. He's 24 years old. It's not like he's a 30-year-old guy, and okay, that doesn't really equate. No, this is fine. So in the 1st round, they get Amari Cooper, and they come back and get Tristan Hill in the 2nd, who I think is a vastly underrated guy. The more I find out about him, the more I like. Then they come back and they get offensive guard Connor McGovern there in the 3rd. I think that was a value pick, and I love it. It gives them a lot of options on the offensive line moving forward with some big contracts coming up. Then they got Tony Pollard, the running back. He's going to fit in just fine. Special teams. He's going to help in the return game, which they really needed because they lost Beasley. They got Michael Jackson, cornerback. He totally fits the type of cornerbacks that they want with the new Richard Sherman types, if you will. And then they got, a guy in the 5th, Joe Jackson, that is another Marinelli-style guy. I think this is just an overall solid to great draft. I don't think it's a great draft, but it's definitely just under that. What do you guys think about it? Tom?
Well, I would say, addressing the offensive line is key because you do not want the offensive line to get old together. That's kind of what hurt the Giants. And with, drafting Connor McGovern in the 3rd round, you get that insurance policy where, you did not invest a high value pick, but if someone moves on, you can slide him in without worrying to trying to find a replacement. And it can be someone who's familiar with the scheme. But you also got to ask, this question is, will the head coach be back? Because, Garrett is probably on the hot seat this year.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a, put up or shut up year. He's had some ups and downs, and you have to hope, if you're a Cowboys fan, that they win some games and make some noise, or they're getting a new head coach.
And I think that's valid. I think you're right. They're not really talking about it, but his contract runs out at the end of the year, and there's been no talk of an extension at this point. Brian, what do you think about that? I mean, I think some of these moves are almost Belichickian, specifically the guard, which Tom explained so well. It's not a guy that they're really looking to come in right now and do something. But if they need to, yeah, he probably could, and he gives them a lot of flexibility and things like that. They do the same thing at running back. These are depth drafts. I mean, they're not trying to get starters right there. That's a different approach for the Dallas Cowboys because they haven't had that much talent to where they're looking for depth, have they?
No, and I think, like you said, I absolutely love most of the Cowboys draft picks. I I think Connor McGovern, I mean, in the third round, I mean, some people are having him again into the second round or high second,
Right.
and they get him at the end of the third. I think that's a great pick. And again, just a depth piece along the offensive line, which it might not seem valuable at first if he's not coming in. It's not a flashy pick, especially for, America's team, but that's someone who within a couple of years, when they start to lose some of their high value, like the offensive lineman, they're paying so much money, that's going to be someone who can develop, and you still have Ezekiel Elliott, you still have someone for him to run behind. Same thing with Tony Pollard. I mean, obviously you have Zeke, he's getting the majority of the carries, but Pollard you can rest Zeke a little bit more. He's a solid runner. He's also a good receiver. If you put both of them in the backfield, you're going to find a matchup between, them on a linebacker, one of them, and adds talent in the return game. He's a great special teams player, and special teams are always underrated. So that's just someone who, I mean, he takes one kickoff back the entire year. It helps. And then Michael Jackson and Joe Jackson, both out of Miami. I love those two picks, especially that late. I was looking at Joe Jackson for the Patriots. I thought that they might target him in the fifth, and they didn't. But I think the Cowboys have made some solid picks. Nothing flashy, nothing like, oh, they're going to jump in right away. But these are picks that could pay off within the next couple of years. So.
Yeah, it's really good to hear the reinforcement that you guys encapsulated my take on that as well. And the Tristan Hill, I did find out some interesting information when I looked into him deeper. I'd liked him all along, and the knock on him and why he was dropping is he didn't start but one game last year. He had been a starter in 2018, and then there was a big coaching shift and rollover, and they came back. And instead of starting him per se, they put him in a rotation. They valued him more as a rotation guy than as a starter. And he put up career highs, though, in tackles and quarterback sacks and pressures. And when you look at the tape, you're watching a game of them, and you'll watch it, and okay, fine. Then all of a sudden, this guy enters the game, and you go, like, where's this guy been? And a lot of people were wondering, like, why wasn't this guy starting? You really got to talk to the coaching staff. Everybody that has been interviewed has said this is a yes ma'am, no sir kind of guy. He's very polite and everything like that. And actually, Rod Marinelli went himself down to their pro day at Central Florida and, did the drills with him and everything like that. And him and Tristan hit it off. They exchanged phone numbers. Tristan's been calling him in between then and the draft, in the morning. Hey, I'm up working, coach. I'm going out and everything like that. I mean, these two guys have hit it off. They developed a rapport right away. That's the kind of thing. I think back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a certain guy that was a 3-tech, the under guy there, and supposedly they had that type of relationship, okay? And the Cowboys have been close to getting a guy like that. That's what David Irving was supposed to be, but he's gone. So I think they may have struck lightning in a bottle with that pick. And when you consider that both him and Amari Cooper came in the same draft, wow, that could put this into really special category as a draft. Hey guys, before we go, I'm going to ask each one of you, don't go too deep in it, but which team do you think had the most impressive draft out there that we have not mentioned yet? Tom?
Tom's on mute.
Tom, you're on mute. Okay. Well, we'll move on. Brian, it's your shot on that. Okay. Brian, which team do you think that we've not mentioned had a really impressive draft?
So I came on a little bit later. Have you guys mentioned the Jaguars?
No, we have not.
All right, because to me, the Jaguars have had hands down one of the best drafts, and almost out of not luck, but like just everything falling in their favor with Josh Allen falling to them at 7.
Right.
Jawan Taylor falling to them in the second round when he was supposed to be a top 10 pick.
That was incredible.
Quincy Williams as a safety in the third, safety linebacker in the third round. And then Raquel Armstead in the 5th round. I absolutely love him as a running back and as a player and as a person. Like I've seen a bunch of interviews. He's just a soft-spoken guy, but very, hard worker. And then, Gardner Minshew I don't know. Just everything about the Jaguars draft has been solid. They're not reaching. They're not doing anything stupid. They've made great picks for, to improve their team next year. Not even in a few years. Like a lot of these picks are going to pay off next year.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, and I got to agree with you. It's not that they made any fancy moves. They just took what came to them, and the draft fell to them so sweet, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't have to trade out. They said, hey, you know what Josh Allen fell to us? Let's not overthink this. Take the best player available. Jawan Taylor falls into the second round. Don't overthink it. Take the best player available, and it's going to improve their team starting day one.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what the Washington Redskins did as well. I mean, the draft just fell to them, and I was like, and they didn't screw it up. They didn't blink.
Yeah.
They took the guy that was there that they should take. I mean, well done by both of those guys. Well, hey guys, we're going to do the social media thing here. For everybody listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe and that little notify bell. Apologize, I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm sure I'm going to hear about it from our producer. Trust me. On Twitter, please give us a retweet and a like, and a follow, and all those great things. You know what to do on Facebook. Wherever you hear and see us, please give us that social media love. You can find us on @SportsTalkLine, of course. Me at Stephen Vanover. And Brian, would you tell the people a little bit how they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @DB_Cole, and then you can find me on Sports Talk Line, doing some writing, doing all these podcasts and stuff. So give us a subscribe, give us a listen, and give us some comments.
All right. Thanks so much for being here, Brian. We really appreciate it. And as always, you're a great listen. Tom, can you tell the folks a little bit about how they can find you on social media as well?
You can find me on Twitter at defense_com, @DFENDS_com. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Always a pleasure, Tom. And hey, folks, if you want to find out interesting insights about the New York Giants and/or combat sports, follow this guy. He really, really knows his stuff. Both of them, they do. Thanks so much for being here. And to everyone that was listening to us today, checking in, asking questions in the comments, we really appreciate it. Thank you for coming in. Until next time, listen like you play with intensity.